All right, so welcome back. And now we are going to go to the last lecture by Slavo at the real advanced stuff. So Slavo, it is yours.
Thank you, George. All right, so let's get in there. We're gonna return back. So like George said, every time you went somewhere and find yourselves lost, just click here on the second icon, select corpus, and then go and, sorry, I need to share. Sorry, every time you find yourself lost, just click on this second icon, select corpus, and then go to select whichever version you want. And so, right, until now, we were working pretty much with just concordance, which is the basic tool. Like this is the basic approach to any corpus linguistics, where you just have something you're interested in and you're going to search for it. But what if you just want to find out some basic things about the corpus you have, about like the language and the literature and whatever you deal with? That's where the frequency and statistical analysis and stuff like that comes in. And we've already seen some basic fundamental examples of statistics already in all the searches. So using the example that Hannah used at the beginning, you put in any word, you already have some statistics right here. This, I would call this, as they do on the web, the breadcrumb. So in this breadcrumbs, you would have a characteristic of the query you just ran, you have the keyword, and you have some statistics. So this is absolute numbers, which of course, as everybody who knows anything about numbers knows, don't mean anything. So that's why you also have relative numbers. So the occurrence of this particular term per million. So this is the fundamental statistics for the particular word that you're dealing with, that you're working with. However, if you want to do some more advanced stuff, something like, let's say, analysis of Syriac vocabulary for a dictionary you're working on, putting together a dictionary of frequency dictionary for users of Syriac, for learners of Syriac, the first thing you should go is the word list. That's where I like to begin my searches in any new corpus, because the word list does what it says exactly on the label. It creates a list of words. And what it also does, it sorts them by frequency. So this is the most fundamental frequency thing you can find in no sketch engine in Simtho now. So we just have a simple command like find words all. You click go. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You have a beautiful list of the most frequently occurring words in the Syriac language. Actually, basically all words that are currently in Simtho is ordered by frequency. So not just the most frequent ones, you just get here the first 50 of the most frequent ones, but you get all of them. And here's the information you get. So this is the total number of words. And in this case, these are types. So unique words that appear. So you have over 12 million total words, total tokens, but you only have 136,000 unique ones types. And the most frequent one is men, whichever one it is. And the second most frequent one is X, and people are very often confused about this. This basically means it's an OCR artifact. So there's something weird in there, that the OCR did not recognize. It performs however it performs pretty well, but still only at like 98%. So this is how you get the list of words in Simtho ordered by frequency. You can, of course, scroll down that list. And I think there's a button here somewhere. Yes, download that list. Once again, you see the eye. You can display various kinds of options, but that's for you to play with, because right now we're going to have to move to something else, and that's a more interesting type of frequency. So this is the first way of doing frequency. Basically, just go into a word list and create a word list based on any criteria. But as you can see, there's a few more other options. So let's say you're not just interested in the frequency of words, you're also interested in particular words. Let's say you're doing some sort of morphological analysis, and you're interested in all the words that end in utho or io or whatever, utho in our case. You can do that as well. Right now, what you get here is a list of all those words that end in this particular sequence of strings. Again, ordered by frequency. So we have Malto, we have the Malto, oh my God, Malkuto, of course there is Yamanuto, Taibuto, and so on and so forth. So for those of you interested in, for example, some suffixes or even prefixes, or even, let's say, roots, because you can just put in any sequence of strings, and you can select whether the word should start with it, end with it, or just contain them. So that's where you would begin your statistical or frequency analysis of the Syriac as currently represented in Simtho. Now, however, that's not the only way to do that. And it's far from the only way to do that. George already spoke about use of advanced operators like regular expressions and stars and question marks and all that sort of wildcard thing. I don't think, George, you mentioned this nifty tool that we built in for a sort of a morphological analysis, right? You did not talk about this.
No, I forgot. Can you please cover it?
So as you may have kind of guessed, there's the regular expressions are very complex. They're very powerful, but they're very complex, and you can achieve a lot of things with them, but you kind of have to master them, and you have to kind of think about all the details. So in order to spare you some of that mastery, some of that thinking, we built in a tool which you can use to input any root. So right now it's just 3-letter roots. So let's say this one. And here you basically just select whatever you're interested in. Let's say you're interested in this particular root, Shinkov Lamet. Anyone get all the perfect and all the imperfect forms. You know what? Let's put an active participle too. Why not? So imperfect, active participle of this particular root. You just enter the root. You just click these options, and you click on the Sermorph Builder button, and voila. You get a regular expression that will try and attempt to look for exactly these forms. As you can see, it's a pretty long regular expression. So we're going to spare you a lot of time with that, but it works pretty well. So if you click on Go right now, the system will search for this particular regular expression. That means it will search all the things that fall within the scope of that expression, and hopefully some of them, the majority of them, will be legitimate forms of this particular root. And it looks like they are, yeah. Close, flat, clean, whatever, however. So this is how you can make your life easier when you're looking for a particular root, for a particular form. But as you can see, right now you have a lot of results here. So once again, breadcrumbs, see, this is the regular expression, over 1,700 hits, that many per million. But what if you're interested in which of these forms is the most frequent one? Like what the distribution of the types is. That's where this button, frequency, comes in. So you basically click on that. Right now you have a few options. Let's just focus on basic and word forms, because as you can see in the word form column, you have a bunch of different forms, bunch of different types. So you just click on this, wait for a second, and ta-da, you have a very beautiful table of the distribution of this particular form, of the forms you have just found. With a column where there's the form, there's the frequency per million, and of course there's this little tiny little button with the 3 dots, where if you click on that, you can display the concordance consisting of just that form, or a concordance consisting of all forms but this one. So once again, here we have our query. Just look for this particular regular expression, and we'll end up with a list of, this sometimes happens, sorry, I need to close this. You'll end up with a list of forms, and when you click on frequency, basic, and word forms, you'll find out with a list of a statistical distribution of these forms. Now that's That's a search for that's a search. Oh my God, it's not simple. That's a phrase search for a with a regular expression where the result is many forms. It's a search for one word that has many forms. But what about situations where you actually are not interested in the word, in a single word, but also in the word that this word travels with? Because that's what words do. They appear together. So let's say we have a very simple example once again. A very frequent lexeme in Syriac. So let's search for that one. I'm going to close this again. So this word, this token, appears over 13,000 times, 812 times per million, which is a lot, which is very frequent. What if you're interested? What if you have a, say, it's an adjective like that, and you're interested in a word that comes with it? So in Syriac, adjectives usually follow the noun. So what if you're interested in all the nouns and their distribution with which this adjective appears? So all the nouns, this adjective follows. So as in the previous example, we go to frequency, but this time we go to the advanced frequency, and then we need to put this together a little bit. So let's say we are interested in a noun that is followed by this particular keyword in context. So since we're working with a right to left language, what we're going to do is we're going to first select the word that is to the right of this word, because we have something conditional. Then we're going to select our keyword. That's the logic. So we're interested in what comes here. So this is right context. Sadly, right and left work differently with the right and left languages. So this is the right context. So we select this first, then we select this first, and then we'll let the system calculate the frequency. And go. And this is what it looks like. Once again, you have to keep in mind that this was built for left to right languages. So this will not display it correctly as it should. So we should read it from left to right. So in the first column, you have the word that precedes the word in the second column. In the second column, we have our keyword in context. In the first column, we have the noun that is the word that precedes it, and they're ordered by frequency. So obviously, with Klisho, we have ruho as the first one, as the most frequent, and then we have the ruho as the second most frequent one. And then it just proceeds like that. So just to repeat, search for whatever word you want. Just flip it upside down, right? Ruho. And then we analyze the frequency of words that, let's say, preceded this time. So we're looking first for ruho and then for kadisho. So first, the keyword in context, the noun. And then this time, we're going to look for the word that follows it. So sorry, it has to be to the left. So the first word to the left, because it goes like this. First, ruho, then something. And then go. And the frequency of the two words related to each other will be calculated. So we have ruho de kutsho, ruho ktisho, ruho and full stop, ruho and colon, and so on and so forth. So that is how you calculate the frequency of terms related to each other. Now, of course, as you've seen, you can actually continue this up to the fifth word. So let's say you want not just what we call n-grams or bigrams, so list of two words, but you want a 4 grams, quartergrams, or however that is pronounced. So the list of 4 words based on their analysis. So you just set it up, set your criteria up, and then you go this time in the more or less correct order, because we were following it to the left. So ruho, ktisho, women, Mariam, and so on and so forth. Of course, the frequency decreases because bigrams, so groups of 2 words, are much more frequent than groups of 4 words. But that's how you can actually find out all kinds of things, not only like what adjectives modify what nouns, but also what verbs take what objects, and so on and so forth. So this is the linguistical analysis, so of sorts, rather than analysis of co-occurrence. There is a very special type of linguistic analysis of co-occurrence. What if you're not just interested in what follows and what comes before? And what if you don't know? What if you don't know whether the word follows directly or indirectly, or you just know that the word appears in the same context? You could put two words in a particular in a filter, as Hannah has shown you, and try to find out, try to kind of gauge the distance between your keyword and the other words. But what if you don't know what words come with a particular word? Let's say, this is correct? I think this is correct. Let's say this one, Shlomo. Also should be another very frequent term. Yeah, okay, pretty frequent. So if you wanted to look for, if you want to look for specific words, you could do that. You can do that with a filter. But there are also measures that you can use in a system like this for automated analysis of co-occurrence of words. We call those collocations. And what you simply do in this case, you click on this button, this three connected dots, collocations, and you can just run it the way it is. So basically what happens, the system uses a bunch of very complex algorithms, well, not even that complex in some cases, to try to determine what words occur with statistical significance next to, on both sides of a particular word. So in this case, we have Shlomo, and the distance is 3 words to the right or the left. And there we have a list. Shlomo and Shlomo again, Humo, Nektol, all kinds of stuff. All right. Let's try a simpler example. Right? What would you expect? That would often occur in the context of a loho. Ruho, Mario, Yeshua, Mariam, that sort of thing. So in this case, okay, we have this, and then we can do collocation analysis. It's a very frequent term, as you can see right there. It's almost 50,000 occurrences. So 3,000 per million, that really is a lot. And so we have Meltho, we have a tu, lot, men, the men, right? Okay, Mario, here, the tu, who, I, the tool, hello, wa, abo, that's that. There we go. The bar aloho, of course. Okay, so we can look this at this item number 35, and what the collocations look like. And you got exactly what you would expect. The bar nasha men aloho, the bar aloho, the bar aloho, aloho avo, the bar nasha, and so on and so forth. So this is a way to sort of kind of gauge semantic connections to a particular word, but also you can do some sort of syntax, and that's a part of one of the exercises that we can look at later. Now, so this is statistical analysis of the linguistic kind for words, for phrases, for collocations. There's also, I'm gonna delete this one. I'm gonna start over. There's also statistical analysis available for text types. So let's start with that example that Hannah used. And I'm sure that some of you have already noticed that, most of you probably, that when I click on frequency, there's also other things here. So word forms, part of speech tags, which we don't have, lemmas, which we don't have. Oh, but look, we have text type and we have line details. So under line details, which is the bit of a confusing part, under line details, in most cases, what we have are the metadata that we use. So if we click on this, what we'll get is a distribution of the hits that we found, of the keywords that we found across those text types that are currently selected in line details. So right now we have doc IDs here, as you can see, right? If you go back to concordance, we'll see that the current selection of metadata we have just has a doc ID. So if we change it here, for example, and let's say we're interested in like full chronological distribution of that term, we click on doc epoch, we select that, our view will change. So the line details will now only have the epoch as the metadata, and then go to frequency, go to advanced and click on line details. What we'll get is a statistical distribution of the occurrence of the term across the epochs that we have defined. Now, the really interesting part is the relative frequency, because the relative frequency is relative to the distribution in the entire corpus. So that means that that word appears more frequently than you would expect in, for example, text from the year 400, from the 5th century. So 300%, 3 times as often as you would expect. 1.5 times as often in the 6th century, and so on and so forth. You can just click on the relative and just see the distribution. Oh, and 5 times and 975. Okay, so that's interesting. Also, that's relative to that one. So here's how you can get the frequency. The absolute is the relative one for a particular epoch, for a particular one single piece of metadata. But if we go back to the concordance, there's also another way in which to display the distribution across all text types, and that's by clicking on the text types button. This can get a little tricky and will be a little slow if you have a lot of hits. Not like in our case, but it's very rewarding because you can get an entire overview of what's going on in terms of text types with a particular term or a phrase or whatever you selected. So here's a very detailed breakdown of the use of a particular term across all the text types. That means all the metadata that you have, each and every single one of the bits of data that we've actually entered here, including, the reference, including the upload date, including such as the word count, for example, which might be especially interesting for some of you, including of such misleading ones as, section name or whatever. So usually the crucial ones are right here on the top up until like source and so on and so forth. So one can play with this a lot. One can, of course, download this and work on this on one's own. But this is basically the fundamental way of conducting frequency analysis based on text types. That is based on our metadata. So I think that's all from me for now.
Thank you, Slavo.
We hope you enjoyed the Simtho tutorials. Our Meltho Lab team in the Middle East continues manually correcting OCR'd text to give you access to more accurate texts. The Meltho Lab operation is entirely supported by donations, and it provides young men and women in the Middle East with much needed employment during a time of local crisis. Our project also promotes pride in their heritage as workers contribute to promoting their own culture.